"Did you see that shadow?" Ashley Turner whispered to herself, her eyes narrowing as she stepped onto the rain-slicked sidewalk outside the Veritas lounge. Neon signs flickered, reflecting off puddles that had formed like mirrors across the pavement, each droplet catching fragments of city lights. The streets hummed with the low drone of distant traffic, tires splashing water against curbs, while the occasional honk punctuated the night air. She adjusted her black jacket, the badge of her work apron still pinned neatly underneath, and moved with a dancer's grace, every step deliberate, every glance scanning for movement that didn't belong. Across the street, a sleek black sedan idled, headlights sweeping briefly before turning away, a subtle but deliberate flicker that only someone watching closely would notice. At that very moment, Richard Hayes, the billionaire CEO of Hayes Innovations, strode confidently down the avenue, briefcase in hand, oblivious to the faint, deliberate steps behind him, the subtle glances that followed his every move. He was tall, sharp-featured, with an aura of unshakable confidence, his tailored charcoal suit catching the reflections of the city lights, making him appear as if illuminated by some internal glow of authority. His assistant, a younger man named Lucas, stayed slightly behind, eyes glued to the street ahead, missing entirely the anomaly that Ashley had spotted. She paused beside a lamppost, rain trickling off the brim of her hood, and let her gaze sweep silently over the scene, noting the rhythm, the spacing, the slight hesitation in a shadow's gait. Her mind ran through scenarios, a mental checklist formed over years of observing subtleties while navigating spaces where she was often unseen. The world often ignored her presence, brushed past her like a ghost in a bustling city, but tonight she was present in a way that mattered. Every detail registered, the glint of shoes catching the light differently, the unusual pause near a corner, the barely audible shift in air as the shadow moved past another pedestrian. Her heartbeat remained steady, a quiet drum beneath the symphony of urban noise. She knew that noticing what others overlooked could make all the difference, a truth learned from years of moving unseen in environments where her skin and status were underestimated. Ashley stepped closer, blending into a shopfront doorway, eyes never leaving the target, every muscle poised to react if necessary, yet calm, measured, unflinching. Richard Hayes continued unaware, his expression fixed in the habitual mask of focus and authority, every stride confident, while the city around them seemed to pulse with tension that only Ashley could perceive. The lamplight flickered, rain pattered against his polished shoes, and the faint shadow lingered just a touch too long, the irregularity barely perceptible to anyone else. But Ashley's gaze locked onto it, registering the anomaly with precision, a silent alarm ringing in her mind. She didn't speak. She didn't signal. She simply let her awareness expand, a quiet power born from being overlooked, a presence unnoticed yet entirely vital. Each step she took echoed softly against the wet pavement, aligning her movement with his path, keeping just enough distance to remain unseen, yet close enough to observe, to assess, to protect if the moment required. And as the night deepened, the city noises blended into a background hum, a canvas on which a single observant figure painted her vigilance with sharp focus, every micro-expression, every shift in rhythm captured and catalogued silently. She was the unseen sentinel, the black waitress whose quiet attention noticed what no one else did, whose eyes and mind mapped the city in ways others never imagined, and in that moment, the stage was set for an encounter that would test awareness, timing, and the power hidden in the quietest observations. The neon glow, the slick pavement, the distant car horns, and the faint scent of rain-soaked asphalt created a cinematic frame in which only Ashley could see the full picture, a frame where her perception alone held the key to outcomes yet to unfold, every flicker of shadow a potential story, every irregular step a question awaiting answer, and she moved through it with the calm confidence of someone who had long understood that being unnoticed was not being powerless. Ashley Turner moved along the edge of the sidewalk, blending seamlessly with the crowd as the city pulsed around her. Her senses were heightened, each sound distinct and deliberate, from the tapping of high heels on wet pavement to the subtle shuffle of someone adjusting a backpack nearby. She adjusted her scarf, the damp fabric sticking slightly to her neck, and let her gaze sweep the street with precision. Richard Hayes continued down the avenue, speaking quietly into his phone, his voice carrying the smooth authority of someone accustomed to command, yet unaware of the faint rhythm of footsteps tracking him from a distance. Ashley noted the spacing between the follower and the CEO, the timing of each step, the pauses that seemed almost imperceptible, and filed each observation silently in her mind. The neon reflections from shop windows danced across puddles, creating fractured images that made identification challenging for anyone not paying attention. She caught a glint of a watch under a sleeve, the subtle movement as the shadow lingered near the corner, a small tell that would have gone unnoticed by the hurried pedestrians and distracted street vendors. Ashley allowed herself a quiet inhale, the chill night air filling her lungs as she calculated the angles, the exits, the possible routes, a mental map forming in real time. Meanwhile, Richard strolled past a row of brownstone buildings, the warm light from the apartments spilling onto the street, oblivious to the micro-details that Ashley detected with unwavering focus. She saw the subtle hesitation in the followers' stride, the slight adjustment of their coat collar, the way their gaze flickered past other passers-by to catch Richard in the corner of their eyes. Every tiny motion painted a narrative for Ashley, a story hidden in plain sight, one she had trained herself to read over countless nights walking the city streets, observing, memorizing, anticipating. She shifted her position, moving closer to the intersection without making herself obvious, the sound of her footsteps muted by the rain-slicked pavement, her hood casting shadows over her face. Richard laughed softly at something Lucas said, completely unaware that the presence behind him was not ordinary, not a casual coincidence. Ashley's heart rate remained steady, her focus absolute, as she monitored the situation, ready to guide, to alert, or to act in subtle ways that could prevent potential disruption. She noted the way the city sounds masked the subtle cues of movement, the rustle of a bag, the soft tapping of shoes, and integrated them into her mental pattern, each element a thread in a complex tapestry of observation. Ashley's intuition, honed through years of unnoticed diligence, told her that timing was critical, that any action needed to be precise, silent, and effective. She did not panic, she did not overthink. She simply processed, catalogued, and anticipated, her eyes tracing the path of every shadow, every reflection, every pause in the rhythm of the street. The night air smelled faintly of rain-soaked asphalt mixed with the sweet aroma of nearby bakery windows, and every sensory detail sharpened her awareness further, anchoring her to the moment, to the responsibility she had quietly assumed. As the crowd shifted around her, conversations blending into the urban hum, Ashley remained a calm observer, an unseen sentinel whose attention to detail set her apart, whose ability to perceive what others missed had already begun to influence the flow of events, and whose quiet, unassuming vigilance ensured that when the time came, she would be ready to intervene with clarity, precision, and an unshakable confidence born from being both unseen and entirely aware. Ashley Turner shifted slightly, keeping the glow of a nearby street lamp behind her, casting her shadow long and blending it with the night, as she tracked the subtle movement of the figure following Richard Hayes. The air was thick with the faint scent of wet concrete and roasted coffee beans from a late-night cafe, mingling with the occasional hint of exhaust from a passing sedan. Each detail became part of her mental map, the rhythm of footsteps, the sway of a jacket, the brief glimmer of a watch catching light, all combining into a pattern she could read with clarity. Richard's confident stride remained steady, his polished shoes clicking against the wet pavement, oblivious to the presence just beyond his awareness. Lucas walked a step behind, his focus on the path ahead, unaware of the incongruities that Ashley noted immediately. She adjusted her position, moving closer to a corner without drawing attention, every movement deliberate, measured, yet fluid, as if rehearsed for moments exactly like this. Her eyes scanned the shadow again, noting the brief hesitations, the way it avoided the lamplight, the calculated timing that revealed caution and intent. A gentle breeze lifted the hem of Ashley's jacket, reminding her of the chill settling into the evening, but her focus remained unbroken, her mind a calm center of awareness in the restless city. Richard paused to check a text, the light of his phone illuminating his face momentarily, and in that split second, Ashley observed the way the follower mirrored his pace, the subtle copying of steps that betrayed more than casual coincidence. She shifted her weight, stepping into a darker alcove where she could maintain sight lines without being seen, noting exit points, side streets, and the brief pauses of passers-by that might conceal or reveal movement. The rhythm of the city carried on, taxi horns, distant sirens, the hum of neon, creating a soundscape that both masked and highlighted the small but crucial details. Every twitch, every glance of the follower became information to be processed, each micro-movement catalogued as part of a silent assessment that Ashley maintained with steady composure. The mental checklist she had rehearsed over countless shifts at the Veritas Lounge unfolded naturally. Observe, interpret, anticipate, and when necessary, act without drawing attention. Richard's laughter echoed softly off the brick facades, a casual, unaware sound that contrasted with the quiet precision of Ashley's focus. She noted a subtle change in the followers' trajectory as they rounded a corner ahead, adjusting their approach in a way that suggested attentiveness and intent, and Ashley marked it, already calculating the implications for Richard's path. Every passerby became part of the periphery, every movement a potential variable in a complex, invisible equation only Ashley was equipped to solve. She maintained a steady, controlled presence, her breath even, her eyes sharp, noting reflections in windows, brief flashes of light, and the cadence of approaching footsteps, all while Richard and Lucas continued forward, unaware that someone else was reading the city in a way they could not. Ashley's quiet vigilance was the anchor of the moment, the unseen hand holding awareness over the street, every micro-expression, every irregularity feeding into her decisions, a testament to the power of perception when it is unseen but entirely present. The rain had eased slightly, leaving the streets glistening under the diffuse glow of lamps and neon signs, and in that quiet clarity, Ashley prepared for the moment she might intervene, ready to guide, alert, or subtly influence the path ahead with the skill and insight that came from years of observing what others did not, a reminder that the most powerful presence often moves silently through the background, unseen yet fully aware of every detail unfolding around them. Ashley Turner adjusted her hood as she stepped into the narrow alleyway, the damp bricks reflecting the faint glow of the overhead lamps, each wet surface a mirror catching fragments of movement from the surrounding city. She paused for a moment, ears attuned to the faintest sound of footsteps echoing against the walls, her eyes scanning the subtle shifts in shadow that indicated the presence of someone moving deliberately, yet cautiously. Richard Hayes continued down the main street, unaware of the subtle changes in his surroundings, the soft tap of his polished shoes against the rain-slicked pavement creating a steady rhythm, a rhythm Ashley could read and interpret with precision. Lucas, still at his side, glanced at his phone, distracted by the stream of messages, completely missing the nuance in the periphery that Ashley noticed immediately. She moved with quiet confidence, her sneakers making almost no sound, positioning herself where she could observe both the CEO and the subtle anomaly behind him without being seen. A faint reflection caught her eye, the shimmer of a watch under a sleeve, the slight hesitation in a figure's stride, and Ashley catalogued it instantly, matching it against countless scenarios she had rehearsed mentally countless times before. The street smelled faintly of wet asphalt mixed with the aroma of nearby bakeries, the sensory details grounding her focus as she anticipated the path ahead. Richard paused at a crosswalk, adjusting the strap of his briefcase, and Ashley noted the way the shadow behind him mirrored his movements, subtle but intentional, a silent echo that revealed awareness and purpose. She shifted slightly, blending into the darker recess of a shopfront, her body relaxed yet ready, eyes scanning exit points, alleyways, and side streets for potential hazards, all while maintaining an uninterrupted observation of the target. The soft hum of traffic, distant sirens, and occasional footsteps created a soundscape that both concealed and highlighted movement, every nuance absorbed by Ashley with complete attention. Her mind worked in a silent rhythm of observe, interpret, and anticipate, each micro-movement adding to the unfolding narrative she read with absolute clarity. Richard's laughter, soft and unguarded, contrasted with the calculated stillness of the follower, a subtle dissonance that Ashley noted immediately, understanding the implications of each slight change in pace, each brief pause. She calculated potential deviations in his path, noting where the follower might attempt to approach or intercept, and planned her own adjustments accordingly, her mind mapping multiple outcomes simultaneously. The neon signs reflecting in the wet streets created fractured images, shadows doubling, bending, and merging, yet Ashley's trained focus filtered the extraneous details, isolating the essential patterns with surgical precision. Her heartbeat remained steady, a quiet drum beneath the layered symphony of urban noise, each breath measured, each eye movement intentional. As the evening deepened, she maintained her silent vigilance, aware that the smallest decision, the slightest shift in position, could change the trajectory of events, and her awareness alone ensured that she remained ready to guide, to signal, or to act with the exact timing required, the calm confidence of someone long accustomed to being unseen yet entirely in control of what she observed. Ashley Turner noticed the figure adjust its pace, a subtle shift that suggested intent and focus, and she instinctively mirrored the movement from a safe distance, keeping herself partially hidden in the shadow of a building. The soft glow of streetlights reflected on the wet asphalt, turning each puddle into a fractured lens through which she could observe the interaction between the follower and the CEO, Richard Hayes, with perfect clarity. She recognized the rhythm of their steps, the slight hesitation before corners, the almost imperceptible way the shadow's eyes darted to the surrounding crowd, and she catalogued each detail mentally, matching it against countless scenarios she had rehearsed in her mind. Richard moved steadily, unaware, his polished shoes making a confident, crisp sound against the sidewalk, the briefcase in his hand swinging slightly in sync with his stride, while Lucas walked alongside him, his gaze fixed ahead, completely missing the micro-movements Ashley was tracking. She shifted her position again, slipping closer to a low fence that allowed her a better view without drawing attention, the night air cool against her face, the faint scent of rain-soaked concrete mixing with the aroma of nearby cafes. Every flicker of light, every reflective surface became a tool for her observation, each one enhancing her understanding of the situation in a way that no one else could perceive. The figure behind Richard paused for a fraction of a second near a parked car, glancing around, and Ashley noted the angle of their stance, the tilt of their head, the slight tightening of their grip on a bag, all of which suggested careful calculation. She allowed herself a calm, measured breath, maintaining a steady heartbeat, knowing that patience and observation were her greatest assets, that reacting prematurely could give away her presence and compromise the advantage she had. Richard laughed softly at something Lucas said, a casual sound that contrasted sharply with the careful, deliberate movements of the shadow trailing them, and Ashley noted the timing, the pattern, the intention that the follower could not conceal despite their attempts at discretion. She shifted her weight, moving silently over uneven pavement, using every element of the environment to her advantage, the subtle reflections from neon signs, the wet surfaces, the interplay of shadow and light all aiding her in maintaining complete awareness. She mentally marked potential exits, side streets, and open spaces, mapping each possibility, understanding that the flow of the city itself could either conceal or reveal the follower. The soft hum of distant traffic, the intermittent hiss of tires through shallow puddles, the occasional distant shout from a late-night passerby created a complex soundscape that Ashley filtered effortlessly, distinguishing between ambient noise and critical cues. Her eyes caught a fleeting reflection in a shop window, a glimmer that confirmed her previous suspicions, and she processed the information instantly, preparing to act subtly but decisively when the moment demanded. The city seemed to pulse around her, every sound and every movement a thread in a complex, living map of the environment, one she read with absolute precision, aware that her presence, though unseen, was shaping the outcome, that each decision she made, each step she took, could influence the course of events with quiet yet undeniable effect. Ashley remained focused, calm, and ready, the unseen guardian moving seamlessly through the urban landscape, every detail observed, every pattern understood, every possibility anticipated, the subtle power of awareness guiding her through the night with absolute confidence and clarity. Ashley Turner stepped lightly into the open plaza, the city lights bouncing off the polished stone beneath her feet, creating a mosaic of reflections that seemed to move with every step. Richard Hayes slowed slightly, glancing up at the illuminated facades of office buildings, completely unaware of the subtle shift in the air behind him. The figure that had been trailing him paused momentarily near a lamppost, adjusting a bag strap, an action small but telling, and Ashley immediately registered the pattern, her mind mapping their intent and trajectory. The breeze carried the faint scent of damp asphalt, mixed with the aroma of a nearby bakery, and every sensory cue contributed to her awareness, sharpening her focus. Lucas stayed at Richard's side, focused on conversation, oblivious to the measured rhythm of the trailing figure, while Ashley positioned herself strategically near a low planter, observing both the CEO and the follower without drawing attention. Each reflection in shop windows, each shadow cast by the overhead lights, each movement of pedestrians became part of the complex visual map she maintained in her mind, filtering irrelevant information and isolating details of importance. Richard adjusted the strap of his briefcase, his polished shoes clicking against the stone, and Ashley noted the timing and coordination of each movement, understanding how the follower mirrored subtle aspects of his stride. She shifted slightly, her posture relaxed yet alert, ready to act subtly to influence the situation if necessary, her awareness extending beyond immediate sight to include peripheral cues, distant sounds, and minute changes in movement. A small group of people passed nearby, chatting quietly, their presence momentarily obscuring the follower, but Ashley anticipated the temporary concealment, predicting where the figure would re-emerge and adjusting her position accordingly. The neon signs flickered in time with her scanning gaze, casting fractured light across puddles, creating reflections that amplified her ability to detect deviations and anomalies in the environment. She catalogued every small hesitation, each glance, every irregularity in the shadow's motion, mentally preparing for the possibility of intervention while maintaining perfect discretion. Richard laughed at something Lucas said, the sound echoing off the surrounding walls, and Ashley observed how the follower adjusted their pace in response, a subtle confirmation of deliberate tracking. She allowed herself a measured breath, feeling the pulse of the city beneath her feet, integrating sound, light, and movement into a coherent understanding of the scene. Every step she had taken, every observation she had made, had brought her to this point where awareness alone shaped the unfolding events, and Ashley remained poised, calm, and ready, the quiet force of perception that moved unseen, every microdetail catalogued, every possibility accounted for, every irregularity anticipated, the city around her a living, breathing map of potential actions, and she stood at its center with the clarity and confidence of someone who knew that the power of observation often held more influence than the obvious display of authority. Ashley Turner took a final, careful step, positioning herself near the edge of the plaza where the open space allowed a clear view of both Richard Hayes and the figure that had been trailing him all evening. The rain had eased to a light drizzle, creating tiny rivulets along the stone pavement that reflected the streetlights like scattered gems, each one catching movement in a way that only Ashley noticed. Richard paused near a low fountain, checking the alignment of his briefcase and glancing at Lucas, still unaware of the subtle irregularity behind him. Ashley observed the follower's hesitation, the slight alteration in posture as they shifted from shadow to shadow, and she understood that the timing of any action had to be precise, quiet, and deliberate. The distant hum of traffic, the occasional splash of tires through puddles, and the soft echo of a passerby's voice created a layered soundtrack that Ashley parsed effortlessly, distinguishing ordinary ambient noise from the faint cues of the follower's movements. Her eyes caught a glimmer of metal in the low light, perhaps a clasp on a bag or a subtle reflection from the follower's watch, a small but telling detail that confirmed her intuition. Ashley allowed herself a measured breath, feeling the cool night air fill her lungs, grounding her awareness as she mentally calculated the most effective way to manage the situation. Richard laughed softly at something Lucas said, a natural, unguarded sound that contrasted sharply with the precise, calculated motion of the shadow behind him, reinforcing Ashley's understanding that the follower was deliberate and attentive. She shifted slightly, moving behind a planter, ensuring she remained unseen while keeping the entire scene within her line of sight, her attention distributed perfectly between the CEO and the subtle threat that followed. Every reflection in the puddles, every movement in the peripheral crowd, every flicker of light from neon signs overhead was integrated into her mental map, creating a complete understanding of the dynamic environment. She noted the potential exits, the spatial relationships between the figures, and the timing necessary to intervene indirectly, using observation alone to influence the outcome without revealing herself. Ashley's presence was invisible yet central, her steady breathing and calm posture masking the intense focus that processed the scene like a live chessboard, each step and glance, a calculated variable in a larger strategy. The follower adjusted their approach slightly, a minor correction that Ashley noted immediately, anticipating their next movement and planning her subtle positioning to maintain oversight. The night air carried the muted sense of coffee and damp stone, anchoring her awareness and sharpening her senses further, while the soft reflections of city lights continued to paint fractured images on the wet pavement, each one a potential signal to interpret. She remained poised, observing and calculating, aware that the smallest adjustment in her stance, the slightest step forward or back, could affect the trajectory of events. The quiet vigilance of her presence held the unfolding moment in balance, her focus absolute, every micro-detail accounted for, every pattern anticipated, ensuring that when the time came, her awareness alone would be the guiding force that shaped the course of the night without a single overt movement, the silent power of observation controlling the scene from the shadows with unshakable precision and clarity. Ashley Turner stepped slightly forward, keeping her presence shadowed yet perfectly aligned with the unfolding scene. The soft drizzle turning the plaza into a reflective canvas of city lights that shimmered like scattered jewels beneath her feet. Richard Hayes slowed, scanning the surrounding area casually, oblivious to the precise observation guiding every move Ashley made from her vantage point. The figure trailing him shifted subtly, their attention divided between the CEO and the ambient cityscape, unaware that every micro-movement was being catalogued by someone who had long trained her senses to detect what others missed. Ashley noted the angle of the follower's approach, the small hesitations before each turn, the way the glint of their watch caught the light for just a fraction of a second, and she adjusted her own position in real time, anticipating the trajectory and planning discreet intervention. The night air carried the faint scent of wet asphalt, mingling with the aroma of a nearby bakery, and each element grounded her focus, sharpening her awareness of every detail from the reflective windows to the subtle echoes of distant footsteps. Richard's briefcase swung lightly with each stride, his laughter soft and unguarded as Lucas recounted a minor anecdote, and Ashley noted the temporal alignment of the followers' steps, their pattern almost imperceptible yet entirely consistent, a silent signal of intent that she understood instantly. She shifted to a slightly darker alcove near the fountain, her sneakers silent against the polished stone, and surveyed the scene, the interplay of shadow, light, and movement providing her with complete spatial awareness. Every reflective surface, every puddle, every neon flicker became a data point, enhancing her perception as she calculated the optimal sequence for action should the moment require it. The follower's gaze flicked momentarily, a subtle acknowledgement that their observation of Richard was deliberate, and Ashley registered it immediately, noting not just the motion but the intent behind it, every adjustment a confirmation of her initial assessment. Her breath remained steady, her heartbeat controlled, as she integrated the sensory information into a mental map that encompassed all variables, considering possible deviations, alternate routes, and timing, all while remaining invisible. The soft hum of traffic, distant sirens, and intermittent city sounds created a layered backdrop that Ashley filtered with precision, each auditory cue reinforcing her understanding of the environment and the positions of both Richard and the follower. Neon reflections rippled across puddles, casting fractured light that Ashley used to refine her perspective, each movement observed, every irregularity noted, every pattern accounted for. She remained poised, fully present, a calm yet dynamic force operating in silence, her observation shaping the potential outcome without a single overt motion, her awareness acting as the unseen guide of the evening, every micro-detail recorded, every potential action anticipated, every risk assessed with the clarity and confidence that came from years of being both unseen and entirely aware, ready to ensure that the course of events unfolded with the precision and foresight only her vigilant presence could provide. Ashley Turner exhaled quietly, her eyes tracing every movement as Richard Hayes finally paused at the far end of the plaza, the glow of the city lights reflecting in the ripples of water from a nearby fountain, painting the scene with shifting patterns of light and shadow. The follower, recognizing that their subtle tracking had been noticed, hesitated momentarily, and Ashley interpreted the pause as an opening, a chance to solidify the observation she had maintained throughout the night. Richard adjusted his briefcase, still unaware of the careful orchestration of awareness that had quietly surrounded him, and Ashley noted the exact timing of each motion, the subtle shifts in weight and gaze that revealed both confidence and uncertainty in the trailing figure. She stepped lightly on the glistening pavement, her sneakers making almost no sound, and positioned herself so that every angle of the scene could be monitored, the intricate play of shadows, reflections, and movement forming a dynamic map in her mind. The night air carried the mixed scent of rain-soaked stone and distant coffee shops, every olfactory cue anchoring her attention, enhancing her ability to notice the minutest detail in the environment. Lucas, still engaged in casual conversation with Richard, remained unaware of the strategic orchestration unfolding around them, each step of the follower mirrored and interpreted with precision by Ashley. She registered the flicker of movement near a doorway, the slight shift of a bag, the angular turn of a wrist, all subtle clues that told a story only someone trained to perceive patterns could understand. Ashley adjusted her stance slightly, allowing her peripheral vision to capture the full scope of the plaza. Each figure moving within the landscape accounted for, every possibility anticipated, the entire sequence a choreography of observation and silent anticipation. Richard laughed softly at an offhand comment, the sound echoing across the stone, yet he remained entirely unobservant of the meticulous analysis happening just steps behind him. The follower moved again, and Ashley anticipated their path with exacting precision, noting every deviation and recalibrating her mental map to account for even the smallest anomalies. She integrated the reflections from shop windows, the fractured neon lights, and the shimmer on the wet pavement into a complete sensory understanding, allowing her to maintain a position of quiet oversight. Every sound, every micro-movement, every subtle shift in shadow was catalogued, processed, and understood, creating a detailed mental record that gave her the strategic advantage in the unfolding situation. Ashley remained calm, her breath steady, every micro-expression of the figures around her observed and interpreted, her presence unseen yet entirely influential in shaping the trajectory of events. The night stretched on, urban sounds blending into a continuous backdrop, and Ashley's unwavering vigilance ensured that each movement, each step, each decision by both Richard and the follower was anticipated and monitored with clarity and precision. In the quiet mastery of awareness, she had become the unseen guide of the evening, her observation alone dictating the course of events, a reminder that power often resides not in overt action but in the quiet, unrelenting presence of someone who sees what others cannot, every detail captured, every pattern comprehended, and the outcome shaped by her insight and readiness.